That view is so special.
Hi, my name's John and this is my partner Michelle. And this is our 7-year-old 70,000 mile Tesla Model S.
Come with us as we travel through 9 countries from the south coast of the UK to the top of Norway. A journey of over 5,000 miles in a car that the tabloid press would have you believe has little to no battery performance left.
And let's see whether the Tesla charging network is up to the job of getting us all the way there and all the way back. Because if it is, Elon's paying for all the fuel. Welcome to the long free ride. Welcome back to the long free ride. And if you're new here, thanks for stopping by. Let's take a look at the plan for today. On the map of the whole trip, you can hardly see it because it's right at the very top. So let's zoom in and get some more detail. Today we fulfill our ambition of experiencing the midnight sun. Initially we leave our hotel in Honningsvåg and drive up to the visitor centre on the North Cape. Now many talk of this as being Europe's most northerly point, but it really is a bit of an argument as to what that means. Firstly, it's on an island. It's not part of the mainland. So if you were to say, right, well, it's the most northerly point on an island, well, then it's not, because there are other islands that are further north. If you call it the mainland, well, then it's not, because there's a massive long tunnel that runs out to the island. And so therefore it would be somewhere else. And lastly, it's not even the most northerly point on the island. So it's all a bit confusing. But it is where many famous people have come ashore, walked up the cliffs, had champagne and celebrated being, in effect, at the top of Europe.
Leaving John asleep the next morning, I snuck out and found my way to the Christmas shop with the joint bank account card, because there's no way I was ever going to get him to go into the store. The Christmas shop was immense, over 2 floors, with literally every decoration you could ever think of. So I picked up just a couple of little souvenirs. I carried on my walk around the port area and saw both a cruise ship and the car and passenger ferry called the Hurtigruten ferry. It translates to mean the fast route. This is a fleet of 16 ferries, I believe, that operate right across the north and west coast of Norway.
After spending a lazy morning in bed, I got up, found Michelle, and then we had lunch at a local cafe. I had a crab pancake, which was okay, but slightly strange. We headed out of town and took the road to the North Cape. As we travelled northwards, we started to see fog covering some of the landscape, and I began to worry that when we got to the visitor centre, it might all be in fog and we'd see nothing. The landscape showed the harsh conditions this area faces for a large part of the year. The ground was covered only by a very thin layer of grasses. Arriving at the visitor centre, we found that there was actually a very large car park, and in it were lots of cars and caravans, camper vans and van lifers in their specially prepared vehicles. The parking was free, as was the use of the utility block, so this was an excellent place for these people to stay for a few days.
As you can see, we couldn't actually see the Barents Sea meeting the Arctic Ocean below us because of fog coming up the cliffs. We knew, however, the cliffs were over 300 metres high and we could hear ships' foghorns. It was really, really spooky and surreal. Gave me the heebie-jeebies, so I had to move back from the cliff face and leave the filming to John. The visitor centre showed us some of the history of this particular place, and it was discovered in 1553 when 3 ships set off from England to find the northeastern passage. Sadly, 2 of the ships didn't make it home. The 3rd ship was commanded by Richard Chancellor, and he actually passed this cliff face and named it Nordkapp. It wasn't until 1873 when the then Union King Oscar climbed from a ship up the steep cliff to the mountain plateau that everyone now knows as the North Cape. And it was in 1875 that a cruise ship arrived, and passengers then started walking up the route that King Oscar had done, and the tourism trade then really took off. They all celebrated getting that far north with a glass of champagne, a tradition I'm very happy to honour. Cheers! Within the visitor centre, there's a number of different facilities. So there's a panoramic film that takes you on a journey through 4 seasons in that particular landscape. It's really quite breathtaking. There's a cafe, a restaurant and a bar, toilets, all the usual, gift shop. But beyond the historical displays and the history of the place, strangely, there's a post office, a Thai museum and the St John's Chapel.
Welcome to Nordkapp. This is about as far north as you can get on mainland Europe, well certainly by car. There is another place a bit further north, but you have to walk along a little ridge and all that sort of stuff. But here we are, you can see the monument in the background. We're here pretty much at the longest day of the year, so as you will have seen from the previous shot, the sun doesn't set.
And it's late.
Yeah, so it's about 11:45 now. The sunset and sunrise time are about 12:15 because, as I say, the sun doesn't set. Daylight 24/7, and it will be probably for another couple of weeks or so up here.
It's been a great afternoon. The museum has been really informative and engaging in ways I hadn't expected, and it's made today long, but we're back on the road tomorrow. Long free ride moves on.
Yeah, heading back south. Can't go north any further.
Well, you can, but you get wet.
You get very wet, and it's a long drop. The visitor centre is a bit expensive to get into, but it is actually worth it. It's pretty good. Anyway, we're going to sign off there and go get some beauty sleep ready for our drive tomorrow. I thought that before we left, it might be nice to get the drone up and take a look at the site from the air. I was expecting someone to come over and educate me on the various laws regarding flying drones, but fortunately they didn't. That's handy as well, because I don't really speak much Norwegian. The North Cape inspired a local artist, as Michelle will explain more.
The Children of the Earth monument was started by a Norwegian writer, Simon Flem Devold, in 1988. He wanted North Cape as the intersection of East and West to be used to let children create a lasting expression of youthful understanding, cooperation and joy. It was particularly important to him that this is uninhibited by national, racial, religious or political boundaries. Those original reliefs have now been cast in bronze and framed in granite to preserve them. The titles of the reliefs are Lady with Bow in Rain and Sunshine by Louise from the USA, Bird of Peace by Anton from the Soviet Union, Man with a Hat and Beard from Gloria in Italy, Beast of the Past by Sith Diejen from Thailand, a self-portrait by Ayumi, Japan, Christ by Raphael from Brazil, An African Man by Jasmine in Tasmania. The Mother and Child statue was created by artist Eva Robacken.
Whilst flying the drone, I'd noticed that the fog had started to really encroach on the land. So it was time to skedaddle before all the coaches in the car park piled out and crawled along at 5 miles an hour. It turned out to be a very good decision. Let's have a look at the stats for the day. There wasn't a lot of driving, so it was only 42 miles or 68 kilometres, and we used 17 kilowatts of power. On the way back to the hotel, we did pop in and top up our charge ready to leave tomorrow, and that took us 10 minutes. As you'll all know, we don't get charged for the charging, so there was no cost there, and there were no other ancillary costs for the car. So let's add the stats from this episode across to the trip stats.
We hope the Long Free Ride is demonstrating that you can do long road trips in an electric vehicle and giving some hints of what the future of motoring looks like. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to help us bring this message to a wider audience. What do you think the future of mobility looks like? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I know it's a TP Babes, but just look at the views you'd get in the morning.